Okay, so now we're going to move on to Wednesday nights. And Wednesdays starts off with Arrow. Arrow has been a show for me, like I've enjoyed it. There have been some, I know there have been some things that I haven't been a huge fan of. And for me, like if I'm going to get behind a show, I don't have to love every single aspect of the show, but for the central character and his pairings and stuff like that, I need to be able to get behind. So on Arrow, we have Stephen Amell, who is the lead actor on the series, and obviously through many flashbacks and stuff like that, we get a sense of what his life was like 5 years leading up to his return back to Starling City, and obviously he went through a lot on that island, and I like that the show gives us little sneak pieces here and there all the time because we have to understand like sort of like where his mind frame is at and why he's so determined to do all of this stuff, why he's so determined to become into the Arrow, and and they do a really good job with that. I like the characters that he has on the island with him, and I think that they play really well off of each other. And if you notice, like whenever he's on the island, he's got like this really kind of like high squeaky voice because it's like you can tell he's still a boy, and when he leaves, he becomes a man and like he becomes this superhero. So I think that's pretty cool. I like how they transition between the two different places. And so then when we are home and we're in Sterling City, we see his family. Obviously, he's very rich, and his mother has since in season 2 been arrested, and she's now in jail because of the crimes that she is being accused of, and that was helping Malcolm Merlyn basically destroy part of the Glades, and 503 people I believe were killed, and when like basically it was like they made like a bomb that created like an earthquake type of an event, and killing a lot of people. And so she's been in prison since this happened. And everyone is basically now trying to deal with the aftermath of that. And, it's very easy for her to be like, yeah, it's my fault, blah, blah, blah. But now, like the kids are all involved with it. So, I mean, I kind of like the way that storyline is going. And then just in the last episode, we find out when she's talking, the mother, when she's talking to her lawyer, she's basically like, listen, I've come to terms with what I've done, and I don't want us to try to go to court and like try to plead this out because there's a lot of things that could come up and there's a lot of things that I cannot have come out. So, they've obviously made that very intriguing to know that there's way more going on than we are even aware of. So I think that that's pretty cool. And then, of course, we have now quite a few other superheroes that are coming into town. And like, there's this mysterious woman with blonde hair who has a connection all of a sudden now to the Arrow, and she keeps coming along and saving, I guess, victims. So most of the times they're women, and she's been coming in and out in the last couple of episodes and helping out. And of course, they don't know who she is just yet, but we're starting to slowly get some pieces of that puzzle, and I think that's cool. Again, for me, I'm all about really good storytelling. If the characters are engaging, if the story is really engaging, then I'm in for the ride. And I think one of the stumbles that Arrow had in the first season was they kept trying to set up our main character with all these women, and he just really wasn't having any chemistry with them. So like, Oliver would be one. I guess the main issue I had was with Laurel, and I found that they had no chemistry together, and I think that they spent a lot of time on the two of them, and it just wasn't working. Like, I don't have anything against Kate Cassidy. I enjoyed her when she was on Melrose Place. I just feel like the dynamic between these two doesn't really work, and I think that like they almost have like a brother sister kind of relationship. I don't find that there's anything going on romantic between them, and I think that they kept trying to push that, and then once they kind of allowed that to sort of simmer down a bit, Like they moved him over to another character, and she was like another baddie. Like she was, you know, a girl who was angry at her dad all the time, and she was lashing out, and then she had all these like like was a big fighter and all that. So I mean, like they've tried to push him in all these different directions. For me personally, I think the best relationship that he has is with the girl on the island, and I'm trying to remember her name. Oh yeah, it's Shadow, and so anytime like they do these flashbacks, and she was the daughter of one of the guys who saved him originally on the island, and they started this season off with flashbacks, and they obviously grew close together, and they had a couple scenes where you know they were intimate with each other, and not even just like all over each other, but just like the way that they communicated, the way that they would fight and stuff like fighting, actual like physical fighting. Because she was teaching him how to become a good fighter and stuff like that. So I thought like those kind of moments, it actually allowed them to have chemistry with each other. And then when it progressed, it felt believable. And I find that if you are, you know, a lead and part of the storyline is like a romance, and you're really trying to grab the audience at its core to like, you know, like they're star-crossed lovers or they're destined to be together, but all these forces are pulling them apart. Like, you know, obviously Oliver can't tell Laurel that he's Arrow, and he has to keep up this facade. Then okay, but you know, if it felt like organic and real, like that these two were meant to be together, then I'd be like, oh my god, like let her tell her, like let her find out. And but I don't. They are like dull as dirt. Nothing that they've done has worked, and so I'm kind of happy that they started off this season basically saying like let's be friends. And I was like, okay, I can kick it with that kind of storyline, because anything else I'm like rolling my eyes. I don't really care, you know, like it's just stuff like that. Now Diggle and Oliver's chemistry together is great. I find that they're great. They have great friendship chemistry. Like, you know, they play very well off of each other. They have a nice relationship, almost like a brother, like, you know, feels like they're brothers. And, you know, Diggle is his right hand man. And he's, you know, he made a really funny joke the other day on the last episode, which, because one of the other assistants, Crystal, I believe her name was, she was all really upset because she's like this genius when it comes to like computer software and hacking into computers and all that kind of stuff. And oh no, sorry, her name was Felicity. And she was really insulted that Oliver wanted her to be his secretary. And it's like, hello, I mean, not putting down secretaries or anything, but she's like, I'm better than that. Like, I want to be able to be, you know, doing all this spy work and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And he's like, well, listen, we need to be pretending that we're doing real work around here, not just like the superhero stuff. And then Diggle makes a comment like, it could be worse, you could be the black chauffeur. And I was just like, oh no, yeah, I think he said, he's like, I'm the black driver, like that's my cover. And I was just like, it was funny because obviously, you know, back to like Driving Miss Daisy kind of thing reference. But I like that they have like this buddy friendship. It's almost like, you know, the two cops, you know, like a Beverly Hills Cop or kind of relationship, or Lethal Weapon kind of thing. Like they've got this great camaraderie with each other, and I'm excited whenever the two of them are on screen, because I know it's going to be a great dynamic. So, you know, we have Felicity, who's obviously the tech genius, and she's, you know, she's got this huge crush on Oliver, which she's had since the first season. And I mean, it is kind of funny, it's kind of quirky, and she's always putting her foot in her mouth, and I'm okay with that, because I think at the end of the day, that is another like brother-sister relationship. I don't really see it turning romantic, or I don't really want to see it turn romantic, because I think that would just sort of be almost, I don't want to say too predictable, but I think predictable in a way that I don't know if I'd enjoy. I think Oliver needs a completely different type of a romance. Somebody, I mean, I like that Felicity knows what he does. So I think that obviously if Oliver's going to get in a relationship, it needs to be somebody who knows exactly who he is, what he's up to, and leave it at that. And not have it be like this, you know, the pink elephant in the room that he can't talk about, or he's like, I gotta go, but I can't tell you why, you know, enough of that already, okay? Like, we get it. He can't tell certain people. And, you know, last year, his best friend Tommy, he ended up finding out, and you know that caused rift in their relationship, but at the end of the day, you know, he still cared about him and he didn't want him to get hurt and all that kind of stuff. So it works. It's just, you know, obviously shows like this sort of have to have people who are in the dark, and he has another you know, he has his little Scooby gang, and it's all good. So Arrow so far this season, I'm enjoying it. I think that they've cleaned up a couple things that weren't working for me last season, which is good. And they've still, are allowing for all this like great mystery that we don't know about yet. And you know, obviously this show has a good overall arc, which is trying to figure out, you know, who these baddies are and like who's coming, because, you know, I guess what happened was once the earthquake happened, or once, like, you know, the devastation in the Glades happened, all these people started to step up and sort of are taking ownership of their place, and they're trying to protect it. And that comes with some good and some bad. So they are so there's all these like little side characters that are now coming into play that Oliver's going to have to deal with. But you know, there's a still the bigger storyline going on. Like, you know, what does the mother really mean when she said that there's certain things that can't come out? And you know, that all that kind of stuff is very interesting. I also find that Roy, his character, which is his sister's boyfriend, the one that works in the club, he's starting to become a very interesting character too. Like, obviously, you know, when Oliver saved him last season as Arrow, he developed this bond with him, and he can't shake it. And so now he feels like he's part of something, which is good, because, you know, he's like the bad boy. He's the bad boy of the Glades. And, you know, it's nice to see that he feels he has a purpose and he's doing good. And he's not just out there trying to steal cars or rob girls for their purses and stuff like that. So I like his character. I think that it's getting some meat on its bones, and I'm enjoying it. So I'm looking forward to next week's episode. And again, it's tidying up some of the ends that I wasn't really enjoying last season, which is good. And now we're moving on to, I think, some really good, some really bigger storylines, which is going to be great.